Welcome to the MPH Lens. I'm your host, Brianna Y'all. Come learn as we dive into mental health conversations to help you better address your mental health challenges as a public health professional. Suicide awareness is fundamental to public health efforts as it promotes prevention, reduces stigma, supports at-risk populations, empowers community, and contributes to the development of effective mental health policies and interventions. It is an essential component of a comprehensive approach to mental health and well-being. Raising awareness about this crisis, helplines, and mental health resources ensures that individuals in crisis or those supporting someone at risk are aware of immediate and accessible assistance. If you or a loved one are battling self-harm or at risk of suicide, please seek immediate medical assistance or contact a suicide and crisis hotline for support. Hello, this is Brianna Yaw, Associate Student Contributor at the Public Health Millennial. Welcome to the MPH Lens, where we dive deep into all things health and wellness from the lens of an MPH student. Today, we'll be discussing how to prioritize mental wellness and still achieve your professional and educational goals. Joining us on today's episode, we have Angela Frazier, who will share her knowledge on mental health, suicide awareness, and overcoming the loss of a loved one. Angela is a project manager at Harris Health System and is the founder and president of Sisters of Public Health. She holds a Master's of Public Health at University Texas Health State of Public Health and received her Bachelor's of Science in Health Sciences and Communication from Portland State University. She is also the author of a kid's book about suicide, where she highlights the importance of suicide among Black youth, being a serious public health concern that deserves careful attention and focused efforts. Angela, welcome to our show.
Thank you for having me.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes, absolutely. So, yeah, I'm a founder of Sisters in Public Health. I started when I was actually attending UT Health School of Public Health here in Houston. I started as a student group in 2017. It's now a national nonprofit in 14 different cities, and we're going to expand again as we go into 2024.
That is so awesome. And what does mental health mean to you?
Yes, so I think about self-care, think about wellness. How do we prioritize ourselves? So that's the initial things to me when it comes to like our emotional well-being. How do we feel as soon as we wake up? How do we feel as we go throughout our day? And then most importantly, how do we feel as we go to bed heading into that next day?
Quick break. Come join the public health community with a 7-day free trial. You'll get access to learn, navigate, and transform your public health career through mentorship, coaching calls, resume, cover letter, and LinkedIn workshops, exclusive videos from yours truly, and much, much more. If you've been looking for career support, mentorship, or want to build your brand, look no further. Join the public health community today for a 7-day free trial at phmillennial.com/join or from the link below. Let's build a stronger public health community together. Now, back to the show.
I completely agree. I definitely feel how you start and end your day can dictate how successful of a day that you're going to have or how positive of a day that you're going to have.
Yes.
And that is important to take note of. What are
Yes.
some common misconceptions about mental health that you've come across as a public health professional?
Well, I think the standard stigma labels, right? Like, um, people are just crazy or people with mental health are dangerous and just kind of those labels that are placed on individuals who struggle with mental health. Those are all really unfortunate, right, to label people and automatically put a label on them, such as things like crazy, when really ultimately people do struggle with their mental health and ultimately really need the help that only professionals can give.
I completely agree. I definitely feel like even from my personal experience, I'm from Caribbean culture. My family is from Guyana, and so there's that stigma heavily emphasized in the Caribbean culture of just not seeking out resources when you are experiencing depression. It's kind of known as a taboo to,
Yeah,
Christians
yeah,
in that type of way. And it's difficult when you actually need that help, to talk about it because you feel like you're going to be shunned or your feelings are not going to be valid to some other people, or
yeah.
it's going to be invalidated, if that makes sense. But
Yeah,
I
no one wants to be judged, right? Like, and I feel like that's the case, and especially, when you're successful, maybe you're a great lawyer or a real estate agent or a public health professional, right? And then it's like, oh, well, I struggle with anxiety or I, take medication for depression. It's like, people have this, judgment that, that goes into it. And unfortunately, really, right, really, really shouldn't. So,
completely agree. Moving on, what would you describe to be key mental health challenges for you personally as a public health professional and for students who are pursuing this
mm,
profession?
you know, I think so there's a few things, right? I graduated in 2018, so it's been a bit for me, but I'll speak to those who are most recently graduating. I think there's a loss of connection for those who were in school during the pandemic. I could say that firsthand just because, having an organization like Sisters in Public Health, it really, thrived in the pandemic because people were looking for connection, they were looking for community. And so therefore they found Sisters in Public Health. But when I was in school, I would say, the challenge is more so, and not to say this wasn't a challenge for this generation too, but just that like balance, right? I feel like the millennials are more the generation of like the self-care babies. Like we're not staying in anywhere, working nowhere for long. Nope. 3-year commitment's too long for me. We've decided to have kids later. We lived in much more of like this is kind of about us. So I do feel like there's different challenges that we have for sure faced, but I also feel like we're also the generation that has said like, nope, can't talk to me that way. Nope, I'm not doing that with the job. Nope, it's just we're saying no a lot. So I feel proud of the generation that we're in.
I completely agree as well. I feel like, especially post pandemic, it allowed a lot of self reflection for a lot of people, and me personally, to pick and choose certain situations that prioritize your best self. You
Yeah,
know, sometimes I feel like it's easy to fall into the go-getter mentality or the overachiever and kind of run
yeah,
yourself ragged. And it's like,
yes,
you can still accomplish these goals. It's just a matter of picking and choosing what suits you and fits within your availability, fits
hmm,
within your capacity at that time, because there's just everybody has issues going on. And I feel like, and there's so many things even now in the world that's going on that is just impacting everybody emotionally, to
yeah,
where it's just so important to prioritize yourself, your well-being. How do you feel?
yes, absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
So as a public health professional who wears many hats, and fulfills so many roles, how do you avoid burnout?
That's a good question. Oh my gosh, you're cracking me up. How do I avoid burnout? Well, I will say I'm a traveler. So I'm big on self-care. I love to travel, love to see the world, and I really do enjoy life. Like I have great friends. I've lived in several different states. I've had really long-lasting relationships and friendships. So that's helpful for me. And again, I'll say it again, is the travel, but avoiding burnout. Someone that um, has as much on my plate. I don't know if you're able to really avoid burnout. So I don't want to lie to the up and coming public health pioneers. Um, you know, to whom much is given, much is required. And I know that um, I have been given a lot. I've been blessed to be in the positions that I've been in. really blessed to be able to bless and help others along their public health journey, along their life journey, right? Just as I have had mentors and sponsors and coaches as well along the way. Um, so I think it just kind of comes with the hat. And I tell people all the time that have these conversations with me that don't strive, don't make your goal to be the boss. Your goal should not to be to the boss. It Find out what you're passionate about and what you love to do. Because when I created SIPH, I had no idea it would be a national organization. I didn't want to make it into a nonprofit when I first started. I had no intentions of doing these things. I started SIPH because there was a community and a need at my school. We then graduated and people wanted to keep meeting. And then we wanted to start a scholarship and we wanted to do more and more. And then it became, this national organization. But what I started doing was what our chapter chairs do. What they host events and bring and do socials. I don't do socials anymore. I don't. I get the luxury to go and visit, right? But like, I'm 5 years ahead in a strategic plan on a daily basis. Like when we were in 2020, I was in 2025. Thinking about like what's happening then, and what's going to be the next for SIPH. So the hat that I wear, I will say when it comes to burnout, I don't know if I'll ever not be like to a degree of burnt out, right? But I do know that like this is great work, and I go to events and I talk at places, and I've had people stand up in the audience and say like, "Oh, I got my current job from SIPH," or me and my mentor connected through SIPH, or I met you years ago and like you got me on the path of public health, or there's so many rewarding opportunities that you get to hear at my level, but I do have to get that, get filled up again. And I feel like that my fill up is going to the chapter level events, right, and meeting other ladies and going to taking care of myself with just kind of travel and fun and friends and happy hours and all the things that we like to do, right? In our free time. And it could be even something like I go to the movies by myself all the time, and the studio movie grill, order food, just literally it's like nothing else exists other than me and that movie and my food at the time.
That's like the best feeling ever, honestly. I love a couple points that you mentioned, not making your goals the boss. I love that. I think that's so important to keep in mind because it's so easy to just want to get to that point of reaching your accomplishments and reaping the benefits of those goals, and people tend to just exhaust themselves to the like maximum to get to that point.
Yeah.
And it's kind of just like, life is balance and also passion. You definitely express a lot of passion for what you do, which is just inspiring for me to even see because,
Thank you.
me still being in my program, especially coming off of finals, it's any source of encouragement or just someone to see like what they've done with their degree, with their experience and where they're taking it and helping others. It's very inspiring. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
you know, building that foundation for other people to take advantage of and connect, because community is so important when it comes to your mental health, as well as solidarity. When you mentioned going to the movies, I love
Yeah.
that.
Yes. Oh my gosh. And my family thinks I'm so weird when I do it.
Oh
And
no, we love that.
I am so at peace when I have a movie date with myself. I just love it. You really, because when you're watching a movie and it's a good film, of course, like it really is just you in that film. Like there's like even the person to the left and right of you, like you're so tunnel vision. And I'm just, that's my happy place, the movies.
I love that. I love that. You wrote a kid's book
Yeah.
about suicide, which provides a foundation to equip young kids with a better understanding on how to manage their feelings and emotions. How has writing this book shaped your life and has impacted your mental health journey?
Yeah, well, I think like journaling it's an outlet, right? So, and also when you are a creator and other people touch your work, and they reach back out. It's awesome to see. I just actually was Googled my book the other day, and a review of from a psychologist popped up, and then I was able to like find her social media, and I wrote her. She like writes reviews on kids books that are helpful for healing, for different, whether it's divorce or suicide, things like that kids tend to have to kind of work through. And she wrote this whole review, and I found her Instagram and sent her a message and was like, oh my gosh, I just read your review. I really appreciate it. But, she's like, this is like, oh my gosh, I would never expected an author to write me. I'm like, we're human, we're normal people. And we do look to see who says what about us. So, but yeah, it was really important for me to do that for myself. I always wanted to be an author. I knew I would be an author before 30. Made that happen, of course. And it really wasn't the book I was, of course, planning on writing. And I tell people I didn't get into mental health because it's a cute, fuzzy topic and everybody's talking about it. I got into mental health because I lost my mom by suicide. And so I was forced into the space of like suicide prevention and mental health. Of course, I could have not talked about it. I'm a talker, so that wasn't going to happen, right? But it's a space that I had to get into. And, again, to whom much is given, much is required. So I feel like this is a space that I have now had to get comfortable in and say, like, hey, this is what suicide looks like. These are signs, these are symptoms, these are risk factors. And it was most important for me to talk to kids at a younger age because, just like, parents will try to keep words like sex and things like that away from kids. Well, like, it's going to happen eventually, right? But you're going to hear the word suicide. They're going to, you want them to hear from a responsible, educated, adult or, guardian that can, explain it to them. And in particular, those kiddos who have lost someone to suicide, I really want to talk to them from a lens of, we are going to have problems. It's a very permanent solution for what tends to be temporary problems that we all go through in life. Also letting them know that it's not them to blame, because I feel like, especially when you're a kid, you internalize so much and you feel like, what did I do? What didn't I do? There's a lot of questions that come in general with suicide loss. But to be a kid and lose someone from suicide, that is a heavier burden. I was 24 when my mom passed. So I have the knowledge, the education, the problem solving skills to be able to like understand as much as I could, right? Versus someone in middle school or elementary who doesn't have the same problem solving techniques as a 24-year-old would have. And so my goal really was to help those kiddos on their journey of suicide loss.
Thank you so much for sharing your story. My condolences.
Thank you.
I honestly, can you share your own further elaborate on your own personal experience of losing a parent? Like, what support? You've mentioned how you took advantages of resources that help guide you and built in the tools for you to overcome that stage in your life. So like, what support networks or resources have been essential during that time for you?
Well, I want to start off by saying friends and family, because I'm my mom's only child, and so going through that, all I really had was to be able to talk to friends who knew her, her siblings, of course, family who know my mom, right? That was very essential and really helpful because I felt like my friends gave me a lot of grace in that space. And I never felt like calling them late, crying, talking about it, screaming, asking questions, whatever that looked like, no matter what the friend was. I really was given that space. However, with that space from family and friends, it only could do so much because no one was going through it from my lens. Like, there was no one there is no sibling, right? So there's no one who could say, oh, I lost my mom too. And, obviously sharing the same mother, right? So with that, I can only get so much help from friends and family. I then had to go into spaces. There's an organization called SOS, survivors of suicide. And they have support groups, and they're all over. I've attended them back home in Oregon. I've attended them here in Houston, Texas. And it's, support groups a couple times a month, and it's anyone who's lost someone to suicide. So I met people who had lost their boyfriend to suicide, lost their, wife, lost their grandpa, lost, a mentor, a friend. And so that was really helpful because I also didn't have to say a lot. They knew, and they didn't have to say a lot. I knew. And you can sit in those spaces and just hear other people talk, and you don't feel crazy. Like you really feel like this is a safe place. I will say, in addition to that, I did do individual counseling. That was really helpful. Just right, the one-on-one, the getting it all out. But I also think spaces like this allow for it as well. Like I have the opportunity to express myself on different podcasts, right, and be featured and have different interviews. And even this is like a form of therapy of like, I don't talk about it all the time, but when I do have the opportunity to talk about it, I talk about it in a way that I'm able to articulate my feelings about it, but then also help other people to understand what it would be like to kind of sit in my shoes. Yeah.
And we're so appreciative of you providing us that perspective on this platform. And I hope that, the audience is able to seek out these resources and take advantage of, going back to their community and seeking that support if they are, or if someone that they know is experiencing a circumstance or a tragedy like this. As far as how to like have these conversations, because suicide is such a tough conversation to have. When you have these conversations and preparations, like what can be helpful for families facing this loss? Like what kind of, especially in your book, how you discuss it from the perspective of young kids, like what type of preparation when you communicate,
Yeah.
something is heavy of a circumstance like this, what would you advise are great conversations that are helpful for someone who's dealing with a loss of a parent or in general?
Yeah. I think just being open, I think suicide loss calls for a listener. A lot of times we tend to talk and take over conversations, right? And I'm surely one. I'm more of a talker than I am a listener. But I think in spaces where someone has experienced something like suicide loss, I think listening to what their feelings are, I think validating their feelings, I think not being upset with them if they say like, I'm upset or I'm mad at my mom, or I'm mad at my brother, I'm mad, at my spouse, because I have those days too, right? I have days where I think, well, you robbed me of something. You robbed me of the opportunity to have you at my wedding. You robbed me of the opportunity to know what childbirth will be like, right? What pregnancy will be like, and not that my mom would have had all the answers, but there's times where I'm like, well, what time was I born, right? There's just things that I could have easily just texted my mom. Instead, I'm like, well, let me go look here or look there, or what if this family member remembers or knows this question, right? Um, you know, so I feel like when it comes to conversations, listening, validating feelings really are crucial, because I don't always have something positive to say. Just because it's my mom, I don't always have something positive to say. Sometimes there's really raw feelings that come with this type of loss. So it's not pretty, and it's not supposed to be, right. And I think it takes a special listener to be able to hear those things and not even judge the person who has now experienced this loss, because um, you know it's fair and understandable to have anger and resentment and frustration towards someone that you really do love, but you become, you know, a member of a club you never wanted to join, right? Like somebody else's actions led to something that I'll have to deal with forever. And that's the commonality all of us have when we go to these support groups, that, well, this person in our life took their life. They did the ultimate action, but now I'm here, and I'm here until whenever I'm going to be here, dealing with constant therapy, constant raw feelings around this terrible thing that happened. And it's not like when you lose someone from cancer. It's not something that you can pinpoint a reason to, and you know, it was their time and whatever we tell ourselves to feel better about the situation. That's not the case when you lose someone to suicide. It is really, it really has its challenges.
And I just thank you again for, for shedding that light. I feel like it's really important for people to remember that, sometimes you have to communicate that ugly to
Yeah.
not reach that solution, but to reach a somewhat level of just release of those emotions can lead to comfort in a sense. Holding it in and not communicating how you feel because you don't want to upset the next person or you don't want to come across as angry is just, it hurts you more at the end of
Mm-hmm.
the day. So it's amazing that despite your circumstances that you are able to take that initiative every single day to take advantage of your resources that you do have and still prioritize yourself regardless as far as how you are feeling and have those outlets to fully express yourself. um it's so important. I think a lot of people feel ashamed of feeling anger or feel ashamed of not being that positive person or just saying the things that may offend others if it's your raw emotions. I just feel like when you seek out the proper resources and communicate to the right people, that it is such a healing way to process those emotions. So thank you for sharing that. On a lighter note, I want to transition our episode to our rapid fire questions.
Mm-hmm.
So I have just 2 or 3 questions. One is, what is a non-negotiable self-care practice that you prioritize to jumpstart your day?
Prayer.
Yes.
Yeah. 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 And really, I just say thank you, Lord, every time I wake up. I mean, I pray throughout the day because I think of things and I pray, but my very first things that I have to say as soon as I open my eyes, I mean, I've done nothing else. I open my eyes, I say thank you, Lord. Just one
Yeah.
sentence every day.
Amen. I think faith
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
definitely is a driving force for a lot of people who, no matter what your beliefs are, I feel like that is definitely the route to healing. Um, so that is awesome. And what tips do you recommend to an MPH student to better support their mental health with
Yeah.
your,
Get it.
yeah.
Yeah. Get in a network, get in a community, no matter what that is. I'm a part of Core Sisters in Public Health. I'm also part of the National Association of Health Services Executives. And sometimes it starts off professional, but you know, if you're someone who is coming into those spaces to build relationships, you get great friendships from them. And I've gotten extremely good friendships from each of those. Community, it takes you so far.
Awesome. And last question, what are you working on improving in your life right now?
Ooh, that's a great question. Um, You know what? It's funny, but I'm working on saying no more. I say yes a lot, and it's just one of those things where I tell myself I'm going to say no to things, and I don't. So I tell myself, in order to make more time and more space for myself, I have to start saying no more.
That is awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. Now we have reached the end of our interview. Thank you so much for the listeners of this episode for the MPH Lens. Do you have any platforms that you would like to share for our viewers to connect with you?
Yes, absolutely. You know, I'm a LinkedIn gal, so definitely yeah, Angela N for Nicole Frazier is my LinkedIn. And you can really kind of find best ways to connect with me there. Of course, SIPH in the network from Facebook to Instagram to LinkedIn as well. But you find me on LinkedIn, you found everything else. So
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. So that concludes our episode of the MPH Lens. Be sure to subscribe so that you can stay in the know when we dig deeper into mental health conversations. And be sure to share with an MPH student what you think who would benefit from this. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you so much, Angela. It was
thank
such a
you.
pleasure interviewing you.
Thank you. Thank you.